Goku has his Kamehameha wave, Saitama has his serious punch, and Naruto has his Rasengan. The most iconic technique in the Naruto series may be the titular character's signature move, but several other characters in the franchise have learned the technique. So naturally, it's time we had a good old-fashioned Rasengan off to see which one is truly the master. Alright, let's start off with a little bit of a debate. All the way back to the Asura and Indra rivalry that sparked feuds for centuries to come, Asura demonstrated a very familiar technique. In the anime, his Ame no Mihashira technique resembled several floating orbs of chakra that he could use as projectiles. Ever since this technique was used, it has sparked a debate over whether or not this technique was technically a Rasengan by a different name or a completely separate technique. Regardless of whether the move is or isn't a proper Rasengan, its appearance and similar animation style was definitely supposed to be reminiscent of the Rasengan at least. For my money, I'd say it's safe to say that this technique was a precursor to the techniques that followed. Minato's discovery of the move is just as impressive if he created it himself or if he was able to perfectly recreate a jutsu that was lost to time. Either way, Minato and Asura were both clearly geniuses. Now in Naruto, there are two iconic glowing orb hand jutsu. There's the form that Naruto learns to use, the Rasengan, and then there's Sasuke's Chidori. This was mostly done so that the two of them can charge at each other with their conceptually similar attacks. As cool as both are, Kakashi has the distinction of using both techniques. And that's an impressive feat, but I wouldn't exactly call him a true master. Kakashi was known as the copycat ninja for a reason, but being able to copy the Rasengan is no small feat even for him. Not only was he able to utilize the technique, but he was even able to help Naruto continue to perfect his version of the jutsu. That's a solid contribution to one of the greatest Rasengan masters ever. But Kakashi's true passion really lies with the Chidori. Now, if I was ranking Chidori users, Kakashi would definitely be towards the top of that list. As of now, I'd say that Kakashi's Rasengan skills in the series are on the lower end of the spectrum. Now, I'm gonna be 100% completely honest with you guys. I never thought that I would like Konohamaru. In the original anime, he was just this annoying little kid who would just appear out of nowhere and ruin an episode. Now, he's on the path to becoming Naruto's inevitable replacement as Hokage. Konohamaru is a true student of Naruto's, having mastered the Shadow Clone and more notably the Rasengan technique. Not only was he able to wean himself off of a Shadow Clone-assisted Rasengan into a proper one, but he was able to master the more advanced Big Ball Rasengan by himself. So far, Konohamaru hasn't been able to add his own flair to the technique, but he has shown real skill teaching it to the next generation. He was instrumental in teaching Boruto the technique. While he'll likely never be one of the greatest masters of the move, it's quite possible that he's passed it along to a shinobi who has the potential to be the greatest master of them all one day. Speaking of, it was kind of required that Boruto would learn the Rasengan, wasn't it? I mean, if your grandfather created the technique, and your father was known for perfecting it, it's kind of expected that you'd at least be able to form a basic version of it. Taking after Minato's genius and Naruto's creativity, Boruto learned how to expand, compress, and use his Rasengan as a projectile. His most impressive addition to the technique came while he was training with Sasuke. The vanishing Rasengan disappears before a lightning release is added to give it a little more power along with the element of surprise. Call me a fanboy, whatever you want, but I am a fan of this technique because it's a unique combination of both Naruto and Sasuke's skills. Seeing as Boruto is the son of one and the pupil of the other, what better technique could there be to show how Boruto has learned the best from both? It is entirely possible that one day Boruto's skills will rival or even exceed his family's, but I kinda think he'll continue forging his own path. Now for me, the moment when Boruto truly came into its own as a spin-off was the legendary showdown between Momoshiki and the Naruto Sasuke tag team. It was like the greatest hits compilation of all their greatest moves throughout the series. In order for such an awesome, GIF-worthy fight to happen, they had to have a massive threat that could push both shinobi to such extreme lengths. Momoshiki definitely fit that bill. As a member of the Otsutsuki clan, Momoshiki has demonstrated the ability to use rare jutsu by using his Byakugan and Rinnegan. So, using Boruto's variation of the Rasengan was no big deal for someone like him. It does seem fitting that Boruto was the one who managed to finish him off. Minato Namikaze might just be the coolest shinobi to ever grace Konoha. Well, that's how people talk about him anyway, and honestly it's not hard to see why. Konoha's Yellow Flash was most known for his ability to disappear and reappear instantly in a burst of golden light. As impressive as that is, it is nothing compared to his greatest feat, creating the Rasengan. After studying the tailed beast ball technique, Minato worked for 3 years to develop his ultimate technique. I don't know if I'd say Minato's Rasengan is one of the most impressive, but I do think he gets a ton of points for being the shinobi to invent the technique in the first place. I mean, we saw how hard it was for Naruto to master it. I just can't imagine how difficult it was to invent it from scratch. No matter how well regarded the 4th Hokage is, I don't feel like it's half enough. Jiraiya started off his story on Naruto as the annoying, pervy sage who seemed like one joke repeated over and over. His story ended with one of the most devastating losses in the entire franchise. That's largely because of how wonderful a teacher Jiraiya was to Naruto. His greatest pupil spent most of his life rejected by almost everyone in Konoha. Then Jiraiya came along and taught him just how special a ninja he truly was. The ultimate example of this is Naruto's Rasengan, a technique that he should have never been able to master only to then master it beyond anyone's imagination. Jiraiya was only able to do this because he was a true master of the Rasengan himself. He was able to arguably outdo Minato's Rasengan, which we saw him demonstrate in his legendary showdown with Pain. Jiraiya not only mastering his student Minato's technique, but also passing it along to his son makes him one of, if not the best teacher in the entire series. Okay, come on. Was there any doubt who was number one? Not only does Naruto have devastating skill with the Rasengan, he is the one who guided us through every major variation of the technique. Originally, we watched Naruto struggle with Jiraiya's training. The precise chakra control needed to create the Rasengan initially eluded him. Eventually, he was able to use his shadow clone to assist him in creating a Rasengan, one of the first major examples of Naruto's ingenuity in the face of a hopeless struggle. Throughout the back half of the original series, his Rasengan was his go-to finishing move. From there, we saw him develop powerful variations on the move throughout Shippuden. Not only did he learn how to use the form without the help of one of his shadow clones, he learned how to create bigger and better Rasengans with both hands. This all led to his wind release Rasen Shuriken technique, which he has perfected into basically a weapon of mass destruction. The super-tailed beast Rasen Shuriken is still one of the most impressive feats we've seen in the entire series. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that Naruto will be considered the master for quite a while. Now all that's left is for me to learn how to use my own Rasengan. I haven't gotten it yet, but one day.